Welcome to our deep dive. We are so genuinely thrilled that you're joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here with us.
Before we jump into the material, I just want to offer a quick divine blessing for you. May God bless your day, guide your steps, and, you know, give you a beautiful, peaceful week ahead.
That's a really wonderful place to start. It sets a nice grounded tone for the narrative we're about to unpack.
It really does. So today we are taking an in-depth exploration into Exodus chapter 15.
Right.
And we're pulling our insights from two really comprehensive texts, the Holman Study Bible and the NAA, or Nova Almeida Actualizada Study Bible.
Both excellent resources for this.
Exactly. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore the profound emotional and spiritual whiplash experienced by the Israelites here.
Whiplash is definitely the right word for it.
Yeah. We're tracking their transition from the absolute ultimate high of a miraculous rescue to the gritty, terrifying reality of desert survival.
And analyzing how that massive psychological shift happens in just 3 days.
3 days. It's wild. Okay, let's unpack this.
That's it.
Because this chapter isn't just ancient history. It is a fascinating, high-stakes case study in human nature.
Yeah, and collective memory, really.
Right, and in how we react to sudden hardship.
Yeah.
You can easily relate to this dynamic today on a micro level.
Oh, totally.
Think about how quickly we forget our biggest professional or personal victories the second we hit a massive roadblock.
We all do it.
That is the exact human tendency playing out here, but on a massive existential scale.
To fully grasp the depth of that contrast, we really have to start at the absolute peak of their emotional mountain.
Standing on the shores of the Red Sea.
Exactly. Exodus 15 opens with the Song of Moses, spanning verses 1 through 18. It stands as one of the oldest poetic texts in the entire Old Testament.
And the language here is extraordinarily vivid.
It is.
Both of our sources highlight the sheer cinematic imagery utilized in this poem. It describes the enemy sinking like lead into the deep waters.
And the deep waters themselves solidifying in the heart of the sea.
It reads almost like a slow-motion movie sequence, just capturing the terrifying awe of the ocean crashing down.
What's fascinating here is a brilliant piece of poetic justice pointed out in the Holman source.
Oh, right, the stubble.
Yes. In verse 7, the song declares that God's fury consumed the enemy like stubble. And the NAA translation uses the Portuguese word restolho.
Which gives us this vivid image of leftover useless straw.
Exactly. And the irony of that specific word choice is profound when you look at the immediate context.
Because to oppress the Israelites, the Egyptians had previously forced the slaves to go out and gather their own stubble.
Their own leftover straw.
Just to meet their impossible brick-making quotas. It was a deliberately cruel task.
Punishing. Designed to break their spirits.
And now it completely flips the power dynamic.
The very tool of their oppression becomes the metaphor for their enemy's vulnerability.
Wow.
Those same oppressors who wielded absolute authority are now reduced to the fragile stubble they used to torment God's people.
It's a complete, devastating reversal of fortunes.
It really is.
And you see that same shifting power dynamic formalize into a bold theological claim in verse 3.
With that triumphant declaration.
Right. The Lord is a man of war.
That phrase carries immense weight in the ancient Near East. If we synthesize the commentary from the NAA Study Bible, we notice the song features these sweeping rhetorical questions.
Like in verse 11.
Yes. Who is like you, O Lord, among the gods? This text makes it clear that the event at the Red Sea isn't just a physical victory of one army escaping another.
Right. It's not just a military maneuver.
No, it is a deliberate display of absolute cosmic dominance over the Egyptian pantheon.
The plagues and the crossing were direct, calculated challenges to the deities of Egypt, gods of the Nile, gods of the sky.
Gods of protection.
This song is essentially the final score being read out. The Egyptian gods were proven utterly powerless on their own turf.
It was a revolutionary concept back then.
Because deities were believed to be strictly bound to their specific geographical territories.
Exactly. But beyond that display of cosmic power, there's a surprising layer of deep intimacy woven into the poetry.
Yeah, the Holman text breaks down a specific word used in verse 13.
Depending on the English translation, it might be rendered as goodness or steadfast love.
While the NAA Portuguese text uses beneficencia.
Right. And while a word like beneficence can sound very formal or transactional to us today.
It's almost clinical.
Yeah. But the Holman source explains that its meaning in this context is incredibly personal. This specific word refers to covenant loyalty.
It describes the kind of provisions and protection given to family or very close friends.
Specifically when the person in need has absolutely no legal right to demand that assistance.
It's about God claiming Israel as family.
He is not saving them because they earned it through moral perfection or legal contract. He's intervening out of a deep, loyal, familial love.
They belong to Him. Framing it through the lens of covenant loyalty changes how you read the entire song.
It does. It operates as a victory chant, but at its core, it's a love song about a rescuer claiming his people.
And it doesn't just look backward, it aggressively anticipates the future.
Yes, the narrative gaze shifts forward.
The NAA source points out how it describes the neighboring peoples: Philistia, Edom, Moab, Canaan.
They will tremble. The poetry claims that agony and fear will melt these nations away the moment they hear the news.
Because news traveled efficiently even in the ancient world.
Oh, absolutely. Along trade routes. An anomaly of this magnitude would send absolute shockwaves through the entire region.
Preceding the Israelites wherever they marched.
And then the song culminates with a beautiful vision of their final destination.
Looking forward to God planting His people in His sanctuary.
The NAA suggests this points to the mountainous region of Canaan as their secure inheritance.
Or perhaps even specifically foreshadows the future temple in Jerusalem.
It's remarkable because they're singing about a permanent divine home while they are literally still standing in the sand.
On the edge of a wilderness.
It captures a moment of pure, unadulterated faith and vision.
They aren't merely celebrating surviving the day, they're celebrating a promised destiny they trust is already secure.
And that communal joy spills over beautifully into the next part of the narrative.
The celebration wasn't confined to Moses and the men.
No, Miriam the prophetess, Aaron's sister, steps forward.
She takes the tambourine and all the women follow her and dance.
Formalizing the theology of the moment through music. And the Holman commentary notes a fascinating structural detail about how this was performed.
It was likely sung antiphonally, right?
Yes, exactly. A call and response format.
Meaning Miriam would act as the caller, singing out the opening verse, and then the massive crowd of women would respond.
Echoing the verse back as a chorus.
It paints such a vivid, energetic picture of this repeating wave of joyous declaration echoing down the shoreline.
The psychological and cultural impact of that cannot be overstated. You have women taking a leading prophetic role in a highly patriarchal society.
Guiding the entire community in formalizing their new identity as a rescued people.
It's poetic, imaginative, and profoundly joyful.
And I think it's crucial for you, as the listener, to let that image of the echoing tambourines and the dancing really sink in.
Because if you look at the wider scope of the Exodus narrative,
That pure, unadulterated celebration is an absolute anomaly.
sadly, yes,
Almost as soon as the singing stops, the brutal reality of their geography sets in.
the transition from the beach to the desert serves as a severe reality check.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Israel travels away from the shores and marches directly into the desert of Shur.
Establishing the geographical context here is vital. The Holman source provides a key detail. The word Shur literally translates to wall.
Wall. And this specific region was heavily associated with the eastern border fortifications of Egypt.
So psychologically, they haven't put much distance between themselves and their trauma.
They are still walking right along the edge of the land of their enslavement, staring at the watchtowers.
The psychological weight must have been suffocating.
And compounding that stress is an immediate, severe physical crisis.
3 days wandering through the desert without finding a single drop of water.
We read past that detail so quickly, but 3 days without water is the absolute biological limit for human survival.
Especially for a massive, sprawling population.
Hundreds of thousands of men, women, children, the elderly, plus massive herds of livestock.
Navigating 3 days without water in that environment isn't a tough camping trip.
It's a lethal, absolute catastrophe. The sheer panic rolling through that camp would have been deafening.
They finally stumble upon water at a place called Mara.
You can imagine the frantic rush.
But there's a devastating catch. The water is bitter, it's undrinkable.
And this is exactly where that collective amnesia aggressively kicks in. The text notes that the people murmured against Moses.
The NAA Study Bible clarifies the severity of that word.
Yeah.
Murmured in this context isn't just polite complaining.
It's not leaving a bad review.
No, this indicates a hostile, aggressive questioning of Moses' leadership.
A full-blown rebellion brewing. In an instant, the ecstatic faith and the echoing tambourines completely vanish.
The immediate existential crisis overrides the memory of the miracle.
They pivot instantly from singing about strength to demanding, what are we going to drink and why did you bring us out here to die?
Moses responds by doing what he consistently does when backed into a corner. He cries out to the Lord.
And God responds by showing him a piece of wood.
Moses throws the wood into the bitter waters, and miraculously, the waters are transformed.
They become sweet and drinkable, saving the entire population.
It is worth highlighting an important theological boundary set by the NAA text here.
About natural explanations.
Yes. Historically, some commentators have tried to find a scientific explanation, suggesting maybe the wood had a chemical property that neutralized alkaline minerals.
But the NAA commentary makes it explicitly clear.
The text presents this as a direct, gracious, supernatural intervention from God to provide for his people.
It wasn't an ancient water purification hack. It was a divine rescue mission.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, a major thematic shift happens right at the edge of this bitter water.
As analyzed in the Holman source.
Right. Up until this specific moment, the central conflict was God and Moses versus Pharaoh in Egypt.
An entirely external battle.
But now that the Egyptian army is gone, the nature of the conflict changes. From Marah onward, the primary conflict is God and Moses versus the Israelites themselves.
Because even though they've been physically extracted from Egypt, their minds still long for the perceived security of their enslavement.
The enemy is no longer chasing them in chariots. The enemy is their own deeply ingrained lack of faith.
The oppressor is gone, but the slave mindset remains.
And that brings us to the moment where God addresses this internal crisis directly. At Marah, he establishes a statute, and the text notes, there he tested them.
The language used for that test is revealing. The Holman text points out a crucial linguistic link.
The Portuguese word used in the NAA translation is provu, and in the first 5 books of the Bible, this specific word for testing was only used previously in one other major narrative moment.
When God tested Abraham by asking him to sacrifice Isaac,
connecting the bitter water of Marah to the binding of Isaac dramatically raises the stakes.
It elevates the event from a minor logistical hiccup to a foundational covenant-level trial.
A test of faith akin to the testing of the patriarchs. God is asking, are you fully mine, even when the environment is hostile?
And as the foundation of this test, God issues a conditional promise.
If you diligently listen to the voice of the Lord your God and obey his statutes, I will put none of the diseases on you that I put on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord your healer.
The NAA highlights that Israel's faithfulness to the covenant is the mechanism by which they will experience God's protection.
The dynamic has shifted. Their deliverance at the Red Sea was entirely God's doing.
They just had to stand on the shore and watch.
But moving forward, their ongoing health and survival require their active, deliberate obedience.
They can't be passive passengers anymore.
No. And Exodus 15 ends with a geographical detail that adds a massive layer of tragic irony to their grumbling at Marah.
After the test, they leave Marah and arrive at their next stop, Elim.
Which the NAA notes is likely Wadi Garandal.
And what they find is breathtaking. 12 springs of water and 70 palm trees.
A lush, sprawling oasis.
The lesson here is heartbreakingly ironic.
Because that massive oasis was just a short journey away from where they were panicking.
While they were at Marah terrified, complaining, questioning the goodness of God, Elim was literally just down the road.
If they had simply waited, if they had trusted the God who split an ocean 72 hours prior,
they would have seen he was already leading them to abundant grace. 12 springs, one for every tribe, 70 palm trees for shade.
It illustrates the intense danger of judging your entire life's journey by one bitter moment.
They assumed Marah was the end of the line,
when it was just a temporary test on the way to Elim.
So what does this all mean for you? As you listen to this narrative, examine the patterns in your own life.
We all have them.
How often do you experience a massive Red Sea victory, a career breakthrough, profound healing, only to hit your own personal Marah 3 days later?
You get a stressful email, an unexpected bill.
And almost instantly, your brain completely erases the miraculous good things that just happened. This deep dive challenges you to consider how you react to sudden scarcity.
Do you default to hostile questioning? Or do you trust that there might be an Elim waiting just over the next dune?
To wrap up our exploration, we have a final provocative thought for you based on these sources.
Consider the idea that the diseases of Egypt weren't just physical plagues,
but a mindset of slavery.
Yes. True freedom required the Israelites to be tested and healed of their internal skepticism. It proves that the hardest enemy to defeat isn't the one chasing you.
It's the one inside your own camp. What an incredibly profound place to wrap things up. Building a faith that outlasts our circumstances is the ultimate challenge.
It truly is.
Thank you so much for taking the time to deeply explore this fascinating narrative with us. God blesses all the listeners. We are so profoundly grateful you chose to take this journey with us today. Have a wonderful, reflective week.